A low growl rumbles in its throat, and Kenji's blood turns to ice. Did it sense him? After a terrifying moment, the Oni huffs and moves on. Just then, a new figure drifts to the front. Have you ever heard of a parade so haunted, so cursed, that just witnessing it could mean your death? In the dead of night, when the wind shifts and shadows crawl a little too long behind you, they say the Hyakki Yagyō begins. A procession of 100 demons, yokai, and unspeakable spirits. And if you happen to be in their path, you better pray you don't make a sound. Because tonight, I'm telling you the legend that haunted Japan for centuries. And trust me, this isn't just a story. It's a warning. So, let's get into it. Midnight drapes the narrow alley in darkness. Your footsteps halt as a far-off flute plays a ghostly melody. Lantern light flickers at the end of the lane, yet no living soul holds that lantern aloft. One by one, impossible shapes emerge from the shadows. An umbrella dances past on a single leg, cackling, its one eye glaring. A tengu with a long nose and feathered wings perches on a rooftop, leering. And behind them, filling the street from guitar to eve, comes a procession of the unimaginable, the dreaded night parade of 100 demons. The night parade of 100 demons is more than just a ghost story. It's a legend woven in the fabric of Japanese folklore. The term Hyakki Yagyō literally means a night march of 100 yokai, supernatural creatures, and oni, demons, roaming freely. Sometimes the parade is described as an orderly procession, other times as a chaotic riot, but always it is a terrifying eruption of the supernatural into the real world. For over 1,000 years, tales of the Hyakki Yagyō have evolved, each generation adding its own details and superstitions to this eerie carnival of monsters. According to ancient lore, on certain ominous nights, the boundary between the human world and the spirit world thins. When this happens, all manner of ghosts, goblins, and even household objects turn spirits, leave their hiding places to roam together in one massive spectacle. You see, in many depictions, it resembles a twisted festival, echoing with otherworldly songs, drums, and laughter. Niraion, a mysterious old yokai, often portrayed with a gourd-shaped head and elegant robes, by his side might slither Nazuchi, a shapeless, wriggling creature, and lurk a Torshi, a shaggy monster that perches atop gates and shrines. Oni with iron clubs, tengu flapping their wings, kitsune, fox spirits with multiple tails, and even animated objects like the one-eyed umbrella ghost, Karakasa Abake, join the throng. It's a pandemonium where every infamous yokai of Japan dances under the moon in unruly harmony. The legend's roots run deep. One medieval chronicle describes a startled monk who peered out of his temple at midnight only to see 100 yokai slithering and marching past the gates of temple. In another ancient tale, the eldest son of Fujiwara minister accidentally encountered the night parade while sneaking to visit his lover. As the story goes, 100 demons flooded the main street before him. Desperate, the young aristocrat clutched his cloak, upon which sacred text has been inscribed, and to his astonishment, the demonic horde shrank back. The holy script written on his robe, the Sanjashi, caused the creature to scatter and flee into the darkness. Through such accounts, people learned that to witness the Hyakki Yagyō, unprotected, was certain doom. But there were ways, however slim, to survive an encounter. Folklore insists that any mortal who stumbles upon the night parade is in grave peril. Anyone who comes across the procession would perish or be spirited away by the yokai, one legend warns. To be spirited away means to be abducted into the realm of spirits, never to return the same, if at all. Some say this fate is a punishment, divine retribution for spying on things no human was meant to see. Others say it's simply the shock of beholding the parade that can stop a human heart. In any case, Cautionary tales advised people to stay indoors on these nights when the moon was dark and the air was still. An old encyclopedia called the Shugeisho even listed specific nights tied to the lunar calendar and zodiac when the parade was likely to occur, urging prudent folk to bar their doors on those evenings. For those unfortunate enough to hear the ghostly revelry approaching, ancient wisdom offers one slim chance of salvation. It is said you must quickly chant a certain magic spell as the cacophony passes your house. You would recite, okay, I'm not going to try to pronounce these words, so I'm just going to put the text on the screen. These strange symbols, handed down through generations, were believed to shield the listener from the eyes of the marching demons. Failing that, the only other recommended protection was far beyond the reach of common folk. A powerful yin-yang sorcerer, but only an exceptionally skilled sorcerer. Perhaps the head of an ancient exorcist clan could confront the demon and live to tell the tale. Everyone else's best hope was to hide, pray, or play dead until the otherworldly procession passed. Over time, the night parade's infamy spread, leaving its mark on Japanese culture. During the Muromachi and Edo periods, artists began to illustrate the Hyakki Yagyō in colorful hand-scroll paintings. One famous 16th century scroll, kept at Kyoto Temple, depicts a chaotic line of monsters winding through the night. Edo-era artist Toriyama Shikian even compiled an entire bastillery titled Gazu Hyakki Yagyō in 1776, cataloging yokai from legends old and new. Through art and storytelling, the concept of the night parade evolved, sometimes portrayed as a literal event, other times as a metaphor for social chaos or the unshackling of human fears. But always, the core image endured. A haunted parade that steals through moonless nights, right on the edges of our reality. In the modern maze of Kyoto's backstreets, Kenji walks home beneath buzzing neon signs and the dim glow of old paper lanterns. It's well past midnight, and the city's usual bustle has died down to a murmur. As he turns onto a deserted lane, one of those historic alleys lined with wooden townhouses, the air grows unnaturally still. The summer heat presses in, and a thin mist clings to the ground. Kenji's footsteps echo softly. He's alone, or so he believes. Up ahead at the far end of the alley, a pale blue flame flickers into existence. A lone anubi, a will-o'-the-wisp hovering in midair. Kenji blinks, unsure if it's a trick of his eyes. The flame gutters out. Then two more ghostly foxfire lights spark to life near a tattered noreen curtain, swaying in a non-existent breeze. A half-formed thought fills through Kenji's mind. Fireflies? But no firefly glows that blue. His heart begins to pound. From around the corner comes a faint sound, the distant tack-tack of a taiko drum, and the high-pitched notes of a flute. It sounds like festival music, but warped, as if played underwater. Curiosity wars with caution. Kenji creeps forward, drawn toward the corner even as a voice in his head whispers for him to turn back. The will-o'-wisps bob aside as if to clear a path. From around the bend, a shadowy figure shuffles into view, carrying a lantern. For a fleeting second, relief washes over Kenji. Perhaps it's just an old man out late. But as the figure limps closer, the lantern's light reveals the truth. The lantern itself has a gnarled face painted on it, and a long tongue rolls from its open mouth. The thing holding it, it's not human at all. It hops on one foot, its body nothing but a battered pepper lantern given life. Kenji stops cold, a soft gasp catching in his throat. He wants to believe he's hallucinating, yet the lantern yokai's single eye swivels and lands on him. It cackles in a childlike voice, and Kenji's skin begins to crawl. Before he can even think to run, more shapes spill into the alley behind the lantern creature. A nightmare is unfurling before his very eyes. Kenji backs up into a wooden doorway, pressing his body flat against the frame, hoping the shadows will hide him. Drums that have no visible source are now pounding out a steady, foreboding beat. The air fills with the discordant notes of shamisen and a flute, playing what sounds like an old festival tune in a sinister minor key. The first ranks of the parade pass directly in front of Kenji's hiding spot. A Bakezori scuttles by, thumping along the ground, its frayed straps flapping as if alive. Right behind it bounces the one-eyed Chochin Abake, the lantern spirit Kenji first saw. Next lumbers a bloated, eyeless animated corpse, carrying its own head in its hands. It lets out a wet, gurgling chuckle, and Kenji has to clamp a hand over his mouth to keep from screaming. He prays they don't notice him. So far, each monstrous figure marches on, gazing straight ahead. Perhaps, he hopes, he's somehow invisible to them in the dark doorway. But the smell that wafts over him is overwhelming, a mix of smoky incense, spilled sake, and the unmistakable must of rot. Kenji's stomach churns. This is no dream. The night parade of legend is real, right here in front of him. He remembers his grandmother's hushed bedtime tales. Stay inside on certain nights. If you hear strange sounds, do not go look, she had warned. Back then he thought it was just to scare children. Now, pressed against an old door trembling, he understands the truth of those words. Still, the parade comes, one uncanny figure after another. Kenji forces himself to peek around the doorframe. There are dozens of them now, perhaps 100, a whole phantom festival passing inches from him. A tall, skeleton samurai in ruined armor strides by, bones clacking with each step, its empty eye sockets somehow scanning the darkness. Close behind, an enormous red oni, nearly 10 feet tall, ambles forward, a spiked club resting on its shoulder. The ogre's fang-filled grin glistens under the lantern light. Kenji holds his breath. The oni pauses to sniff the air, its eyes twitching. A low growl rumbles in its throat, and Kenji's blood turns to ice. Did it sense him? After a terrifying moment, the oni huffs and moves on. Just then, a new figure drifts to the front. A pale woman in a burial kimono, with long black hair obscuring her face. She glides rather than walks, feet dangling a few inches above the ground. A yuri, or a ghost. As she passes near Kenji's hiding spot, her head twists unnaturally, snapping to the side as if she's heard something. Perhaps the frantic thumping of Kenji's heart. The ghost face tilts toward the doorway, and through a curtain of stringy hair, 2 hollow eyes seem to stare directly at him. Kenji's lungs burn, but he doesn't dare inhale. The ghostly woman's lips curl into a dreadful smile. In a lifting, hollow voice, she sings,
"Join us,"
dragging out the invitation in a mocking echo. Kenji's vision blurs with tears of terror. The yuri lets out a soft, eerie laugh, then suddenly flips upright and floats away, drawn by the next surge of the parade. Skittering into view next comes a macabre train of ordinary objects turned sentient after a century of neglect. A haunted lute plucks its own strings, producing an unsettling melody. A tea kettle with spidery legs hops along, belching steam and cackling. A one-eyed umbrella twirls in circles, its paper canopy body wagging a long tongue. Following these is a host of stranger beings still. For a moment, Kenji spots among them a figure that makes his heart lurch. A frail old man, hunched and shuffling at the tail end of a group of yokai. Unlike the others, this figure looks human. The man's eyes are vacant and his face ashen, but Kenji recognizes those features. He's the spitting image of Mr. Tanaka, the kindly retiree from his apartment block who vanished without a trace last year. Kenji's mouth goes dry as the old man shambles past. His clouded eyes roll in Kenji's direction. In a cracked whisper, the old man mouths, "Help me." The plea is barely audible over the clamor, but Kenji hears it and feels his stomach drop. Before Kenji can react, a hulking yokai with a tiger-like face snarls and yanks the old man back to formation. The unfortunate soul stumbles onward, disappearing into the crowd of monsters. Kenji realizes with horror that some who encounter this parade do not simply die. They become part of it, condemned to march among the demons forever. Now, Kenji knows this is no mere nightmare. It's a living horror, unfolding around him. His mind reels in panic. This can't be happening. Perhaps he's lost his sanity or fallen into a fever dream. Desperate to wake up, he squeezes his eyes shut, willing the vision to vanish. When he opens them again, the parade is still there, and it is nearly past him now, save for what looks like the final trope. At last, in the rear of the procession, he sees an entourage that exudes an air of importance. Several yokai heralds march in formation, bearing tall banners of tattered silk inscribed with glowing otherworldly symbols. Behind them, riding atop the shoulders of two burly oni, is an aged yokai lord in a splendid purple robe. The old yokai puffs calmly on a pipe that emits swirling green smoke. Though Kenji has never seen him before, he knows in an instant who it must be. Nurei Heian, the enigmatic supreme commander of yokai who, according to legend, leads the night parade. The small, grinning figure looks almost comical riding piggyback on two giant demons. But the way every other yokai avoids meeting his gaze marks him as the master of the ceremony. Now, fate finally betrays Kenji. A single drop of cold liquid, condensation from the misty air, or perhaps spilled sake from the demon's gourd, falls onto Kenji's face. Reflexively, he gasps, and then, before he can stop himself, he sneezes. The sound echoes sharply down the alley. Instantly, the music dies. The drums fall silent, the flutes cut off with a shrill squeal. The entire procession of yokai freezes in place. 100 twisted heads swivel towards the doorway, where Kenji stands exposed. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Kenji feels the blood draining from his face. Nurei himself turns slowly on his porch, narrowing his eyes in the human's direction. His lips curl into a slight frown of displeasure. With a barely perceptible motion of his pipe, he signals. At once, two smaller yokai scuttle out of formation toward Kenji. One is a stunted bald goblin with a single enormous eye, holding a lantern. The other is a gangly naked imp with a grin stretched ear to ear. The notorious bathroom spirit. They creep right up Kenji's doorstep, peering directly at the trembling young man. Kenji's mind screams at him to run, but his legs refuse to obey. In a final desperate flash of memory, he recalls something. The spell. The protective chant his grandmother taught him as a child, meant specifically to ward off evil. It spills from his lips, and now in a quavering voice. Kenji's voice cracks as he rushes through the strange syllables, but he speaks them all, hands clasped together in prayer. Immediately, an unnatural hush sweeps through the alley. The yokai recoil as if an invisible wave has slammed into them. The one-eyed goblin yelps and hops away, hissing. The grinning imp snarls and shields his face. Even the leader hesitates, eyes widening for the briefest moment. Kenji, chest heaving, presses back against the door, his shaky hands still pressed together. For a long suspended moment, man and yokai stare at each other in stunned silence. Kenji half expects to be torn apart, but the fatal blow never comes. Instead, Nurei Heian's frown slowly melts into a cold, toothy grin. He brings one clawed finger to his lips in a gesture of quiet. Then, almost casually, he nods his head. At that signal, the parade resumes its march as if nothing happened. The drums boom back to life. The flutes strike up the eerie tune once more. Yokai begin moving along, casting wary glances toward Kenji's doorway, but keeping their distance. With a final puff of his pipe, the general of the night parade disappears around the corner. One by one, the remaining stragglers in the procession follow their lord. The last to depart is the pale ghost woman in the white kimono. She stops before Kenji's doorway for just a moment. The jovial grin she wore earlier is gone. Now her expression is one of quiet rage. Leaning forward, mere inches from Kenji's face, she whispers in a voice that scrapes like ice on glass.
Not a word, mortal. Forget what you saw tonight, if you know what's good for you.
Kenji is too petrified to respond. The Yurai's dark hair sways as she lets out one final hiss. Then, like a candle flame snuffed out, she vanishes. All at once, Kenji is alone again in the silent alley. He crumples to his knees, shaking uncontrollably. The oppressive atmosphere that accompanied the parade has lifted. The night feels ordinary again, as if reality has snapped back in place. In the distance, a car horn honks, and the normal buzz of the city night returns faintly. If it weren't for that cold sweat on his skin and the echo of that ghastly music still ringing in his ears, Kenji might have convinced himself it was all just a hallucination. But he knows what he witnessed was real. He survived an encounter, Hyakki Yagyō, by the slimmest of margins. Kenji never speaks of that night. Who would believe him? Yet, for the rest of his life, he will avoid walking on moonless nights. The legend of the night parade of 100 demons endures through the ages because it speaks to something primal, the fear that just beyond the lantern's glow, just outside our window, other beings watch and wait. It's a reminder that the veneer of reality can tear open without warning, unleashing an older, stranger world into our own. We may never know how many modern disappearances or unexplained frights are the work of this ghostly parade, and perhaps we prefer not to find out. Be sure to follow for more eerie tales and legends.